Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up at the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Beautiful good morning to everyone in the Insurance Syndicate. What is up? It is time for Winning on Wednesday, live from Austin, Texas. Me, myself, and my good buddy Joe Camper. And I still, after 56 episodes, I still can't point the right way.
60 plus, I think we're at now.
This is ridiculous.
Not the king of StreamYard accounts, we'll say.
Yes, but he is the king of Facebook groups.
Love it. Now, good morning, everybody.
We got an awesome show for you guys today. I can't wait.
We do.
Wait.
And he's apparently starring in the Deadpool movie. Is that what you were saying backstage?
He's a best friend of Hugh Jackman. He's starring in the new Deadpool 4 when insurance goes awry. It's going to be outstanding. I can't wait to get him on. Dude, what is going on with you, my friend, Mr. Campert?
Oh man, a lot, dude. My wife. I got 2 weekly wins this week. Because technically last week it was on Thursday, but it was the 2-year anniversary of creating the syndicate. So I've been freaking busy and just all over the place. And we had softball this past weekend and stuff like that. So didn't really get to spend a lot of time reflecting on it. But yeah, it was our 2-year on the 16th. So this past week. So that was pretty awesome. Just like, wow. Like really, I just classic Joe, had an idea. I'm going to start up the insurance syndicate. And then 2 years later, almost 7,000 members and 6 podcasts a week. Like it's just been really cool to see this thing morph. But the big win is I'm going to Vegas tomorrow, baby. And so we're going to Vegas for the rest of the week. I got tickets. Shout out Josh Wiles. Got tickets from Josh to be able to surprise my wife on our anniversary a few months back. 4 or 5 months back. And we're going to go see Taylor Swift. I am not going. I got tickets and then found another couple friend of ours where he likes to go to the casinos and his wife is diehard T Swift. So the girls get to have a little night out and apparently she's going for like 3 hours a night. So I said, yeah, you best believe you ain't catching me at a Taylor Swift concert. But that's Friday night. So we're going to be there until Monday. It's going to be awesome. We have like a spa day scheduled on Sunday. It's going to be nice to get away and go hopefully bring back some, take out some of that Merwin money, baby. Bring that back in. I'm going to need some help. I always lose when I go out. So
excellent.
That's what I'm up to. So we leave super early tomorrow morning. How about you?
It's going to be fun, man. Things are going great here at Avila. I would say for a weekly win, and I can't say too much about it, unfortunately, but there is an event coming up soon that I'm helping coordinate. We signed, we got the court formed, right, to get the event going. We've got the lockdown on the contract. All of those things are falling into place, and I've got a good group of people that are helping collaborate on this thing with me. So super pumped about it. We're crossing that last hurdle, and you guys are going to be hearing about it soon. But I can't say anything yet because, loose lips sink ships, right? Isn't that what they say?
It's gonna be awesome. I know. It's because I'm down the hall from Merwin. It's sick. It is gonna be awesome. Good deal.
Yes, it is. And then we got an event coming up at the end of the month here at Syndicate HQ with Josh Youngs. That's going to be a great event. Really looking forward to that. That's going to be the Medicare Machine Factory event. We're going to basically help you learn how to fill your pipeline in 90 days, right? Whether it be through seminar marketing, organic social media marketing, like Joe's an expert at, direct mail marketing leads, like all kinds of good stuff that we're going to pour into people here. I think we've already got about 10 or 15 people coming. Really looking forward to that one. It's going to be an excellent, excellent time.
Yep. Yeah, I'll drop that. I'll come back, y'all, and drop that link here in the comments. And then if you use Syndicate HQ, you get a 20% off. And that's next week. That's next Wednesday.
That is
We'd
next
love
Wednesday.
to see you guys. It is going to be at the Syndicate HQ. So any of you guys that came to our first grand opening and workshop, same location, same place, it's going to be awesome. Any of you guys know Josh Youngs, dude's he is a machine. So I'm sure he's going to be bringing the heat. So yeah, that's good stuff. Well, like Tony said, y'all, we've got an action-packed show. I'm super excited. I've recently just got to meet Ryan in person at the most recent event, the 130 World Tour in Austin. But I know he's met my pops at other events. The guy's doing some amazing things. And right as we bring him on, make sure y'all let StreamYard view your comments, because I want Facebook user. I want to say what's up to you too, but I don't know your name. So let StreamYard view your comments. That is in the description of the show. But without further ado, let's give a nice warm welcome to my man, Mr. Ryan Reynolds. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
Fantastic, man. Thank you for asking. It is great to have you on the show. For those that don't know, Ryan Reynolds is a serial entrepreneur. He's a real estate investor, business owner, insurance junkie. He's the owner of Grimes Insurance Agency, and he's also the host of what's the name of the podcast, Joe? I don't have it in front of me all of a sudden.
The Insurance Leaders Podcast, right?
Okay. I had it right in my brain, but I didn't want to say it wrong. So welcome to the show, man. It is great to have you, and I have to say that is an absolutely outstanding camera that you have going on there.
Oh, thanks. It's like I was telling Joe, when you're too cheap to hire a videographer and you do a bunch of video content, you invest your money in an editor and you pay for your own camera and not for a videographer.
How you do it, man? Well, just real quick, let them know who's Ryan, and then kind of a weekly win, and then we'll just get right into it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm super excited to be with you this morning, and just really, really ecstatic. So I appreciate the opportunity. So my agency and my family, we live in Lubbock, Texas. So think of the state of Texas. We're up in the Panhandle, West Texas, kind of up on the Cap Rock. So high desert kind of things. We're the home of Texas Tech University. Haven't been so great in basketball lately, but we're back on track.
You're missing Bobby Knight. You need Bobby Knight to throw some chairs around again.
That's right.
The old days, right?
Action and get some folks fired up here. So yeah. So I've born and raised in Washington State. Migrated to Texas when I was 19 years old and been here ever since. I spent the first 17 years of my career with State Farm. So I think very few independents can say that they've served customers on both sides of the curtain, and I've done it. So I was most of that almost 17 years was in the leadership side of State Farm. I was a State Farm agent for about 3 years down in the Houston, Texas area, and fantastic opportunity. I've got a lot of good things to say about State Farm. They put me in a really fantastic position to be able to take over a pretty large independent agency and gave me the skills and the resources to learn how to.
We're gonna come back to that for sure, because I've been on the captive side as well. Yep, it's good.
Yeah. So was with State Farm for almost 17 years. Moved to Lubbock. State Farm had moved me to Lubbock about 10 years ago for another. Every time they promote you, they move you. And so they moved me to Lubbock. And about a year or two after being in Lubbock, I was like, this is home. I'm not going anywhere else. So took my name off the promotability list, and that didn't go over so well. So stayed here with State Farm, and I knew I always wanted to go back into being an agent. That was my love, my passion, sitting knee to knee with clients, building things. And so I started looking for a State Farm opportunity to come back to. And, I'm a numbers guy. I can geek over a spreadsheet all day long. And I couldn't make the numbers work. I wasn't willing to put my life savings into an opportunity like this. Fortunately, along the way, I've been investing in real estate quite a bit and had built up a pretty sizable real estate portfolio. So I decided I was going to start figuring out how to be an independent agent. That seemed like that was where it was at. And so I literally picked up the phone and cold called every single independent agency in my town, saying, hey, here's who I am. I'd appreciate if you keep it on the down low because I could lose my job. But are you interested in bringing on a partner or selling? And just really went through the proverbial yellow pages, and finally got a hold of Mariana Grimes, who was actually my last call because the Grimes Insurance Agency was the biggest around, and I didn't think there was any way I could
pull it off.
But long story short, 4 years later, fast forward, here's where we're at. I was able to buy Grimes Insurance a little over 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago, and so here's where we are.
Love it, man. What's a weekly win for you? What you got? I know you got a lot going on.
Oh man, so my weekly win this week is, there's things in life in your agency where you've got to tackle and you've got to do, but you just keep procrastinating. This last week, my procrastination ended. I finally. So when I bought this agency, there was virtually no commercial business at all, and so over the last 4 years we've built it up. We have about a $600,000 in premium commercial book now. So it's not massive, but we've scaled it quite a bit. We've got 7 employees in commercial, and the processes were built really for a smaller. And as we've continued to scale, we've outgrown those processes and systems. We needed to make some serious changes personnel wise. And so this week we did it. We moved a bunch of people around and started literally rebuilding our commercial department from the ground up, all while processing, 100 renewals a week.
Right.
Congrats.
I love it, man.
That's the weekly plan.
Congrats.
First step.
Procrastination kills, man. Dude, you hit that spot on, and we've got a lot of kind of moving pieces as well, right? And I think that's kind of those conversations, and anybody, especially that's running a team, can be difficult sometimes when you're changing roles or, you're moving people around because they still really wanted to sit in that seat, but ultimately for the better of the agency, we're going to put you here, right? And just kind of, I think a lot of people kind of push that off. It can become procrastination to where then ultimately it just never changes, right? So again, that is the win is, okay, we are not going to let this just get to the point of where it's swept under the rug. We just keep doing what we're doing. Yep. I think that's one thing we've also learned at Redwood is that if you ain't breaking things, then you ain't growing. It's like the system and the processes aren't technically supposed to stay the same forever, guys. I mean, you can have your foundation, but you might need to rework and adjust and pivot is one of my favorite words. So,
yeah.
Love it.
It's good. So real quick here, and we got Brian on here. What's going on, Brian? Super excited to have you tuning in. Brian, you're freaking awesome, man. I love your attendance. You're killing the game, man. And so, Ryan, let's kind of go back to the captive side of things. Because I have the same feeling now. I did not spend 17 years, and I was always on the agency side. I think that's probably where you and Pops can relate, is that he was, corporate back in the 90s and was kind of on that promotion train, and then his was the other way around. It's like, we think you'd be a great agent. And then it was like, rough time to start an agency, and especially in a brand new town. But I really appreciated my upbringing on the Allstate side of things, right? Where I think they did a really good job, and they're very proficient when kind of onboarding you, right? You go through Allstate University, you go through Binding Authority, you are very, and I know it's very similar with State Farm. Jason Kilgo talks about it with Geico, just like second to none training, man. I ain't never seen anything like that. And maybe this is just something that I've seen. Now, I talk with a lot of agencies, right? But why is it that on the captive side, they are so damn good at training, and everybody swears by it and appreciates it? Like, I can't even talk trash about my training in Allstate, right? But then it's like when you come over to, but then the options, obviously we know why we're independent, but then you come over to the independent side, and I think there is kind of a lack thereof when it comes to that proficient onboarding and training. What is that? Is it because of how many carriers? Is it because there's not the backing of all the corporate reps, kind of like what it is on the captive side? What is your experience in that kind of, because 17 years, and then now you've transitioned into, obviously the independent side. I don't know. I just want to kind of get your insights on that.
Well, I think part of what helped me, Joe, is that, so of those 17 years, I was only an agent for 3. The rest of my time I was in leadership. And so they put me through, they always kind of joke that we're sending you to Harvard, business Harvard, right? Where they're teaching you how to run a business. And because part of my job was teaching people who eventually taught agents how to do this stuff. And so I think it's partly that you're an employee, right? And so they can make you attend training and they can force those things upon you. So when you get hired as a State Farm agent for your first, I don't know what it is, the training period now, 6 months, 8 months, you're a W-2 employee. And it's not until you actually open your doors that you're a 1099. So they can control you. They can tell you what to do. They can hold you accountable and all those things. So I think there's something to be said for that model of bringing you as a W-2, forcing you. And then, it's not just the training that's fantastic. It's the checking up on you. It's the holding you accountable and making sure that you're actually you're learning the stuff that they're trying to teach. So they're just as good at teaching as they are holding you accountable and making sure that you're learning those things. But, and that's part of their model too, is they're bringing in people who don't know, as a friend of mine says, come here from Sikkim about insurance. And so they've got to start with policy language and so I think that's part of it. And part of it is they've just got a lot of money. And
that's State Farm has a lot of money, guys. Right. That is a good point. It's a good point on the W-2 side of things. Yeah. Did you guys ever have anything like that with Precision? How was that set up with you, Tony, as far as on the Medicare side of independence?
No, because we were a fully independent aggregator, right? So everybody that works with us is a fully independent business owner already. We don't have that type of same control, right? Because we're not bringing them a franchise opportunity, so to speak. And that's one of the big differences, pluses and minuses. It's a pro and con in that, where as a FMO, or NMO in the Medicare space, you don't have control over the agents. They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to sell what products they want to sell. All you can do is coach them, try to bring them the best contracts, try to guide them the best. But ultimately, they are making their own decisions. Sometimes that can be to their detriment, and sometimes it can, or to your detriment, because debt rolls up too. But sometimes, you'll find that some guys really get it. They understand, like, hey, here's the resources, tools. Here's all the things that I need. Here's all the puzzle pieces. Now let me put those together and build my agency the way I want it built. And I found that, because at PSM, we worked with guys that were just, independent, working for themselves. We worked with some of the larger field marketing agents out there. And then we worked with captive agencies that did very similar to what Ryan was talking about, where they had systems and processes in place, and they had a true training program. One of my favorites was Ali Saleh and his team right over at Strong Family Financial. When I would visit their office, they had this huge whiteboard that had all the new agents, and it would have all the steps in their training process, and they would have to check them off. Got to go do this with this guy. Got to make sure this is done, or got to get this filed, or this piece of training done, whatever it was. And they went through that thing in detail. So really similar, where they had a long training process to get up ready to sell. And then finally they were out ready to sell.
Yeah, it's good. Shout out to Ali. Is Alexander on Ultimate Agent season 2?
He is on the Ultimate Agent.
I'm pretty sure.
Season. I don't know if we're supposed to know that, but I got a picture.
Hey, it was on Cody's social media, so that's the only reason I found out.
But yeah, Ali sent me a photo of it.
Yeah, it was on Cody's social. I saw that and I messaged Alexander. Shout out to Alexander, young dude, freaking. I know he's gonna kill it.
19
great
years
spirit.
old, something like that.
Right. That's awesome, man. It's going to be some really cool exposure for him. Well, so then let's go back to this and kind of, because I love this kind of segment, right? Of like, and one of my favorite interviews too was with Jason talking about, hey, how did I take what I learned from Geico and then really implemented it into this independent side of things, where you can't take all of it, right? But there are some of those best practices that he was able to really kind of evolve within his agency as well. Talk a little bit about that again, coming from the 3 years of agent corporate side, but even that, I mean, you got to see so many agents and best practices and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What was it? What are the few things that, hey, when I went and bought Grimes, one of the largest, if not the largest insurance agency in my town, what were some things that you brought with you? Because I know even Ryan England, I see you here on the call. Shout out to you. You're always on all these. He's brand new. Farmers for like 20 something years, went independent on January 1. For somebody like that that's listening, and we do have a lot of listeners like that, what are some things that, hey, man, this is what I did when I went in? I know acquisition's a little bit different, but still, like, you've been able to scale this thing. So I think there's some good gold nuggets in there.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about that, Joe, so you're catching me off guard here. But I think the best thing that I can tell you is I felt like at State Farm I learned how to not manage people but lead people, and to really see the very best in them and see not who they were or what they were accomplishing today, but what I could get out of them in the future, what I could help them transition to in the future. And so a lot of it was just, so I think when I bought Grimes, the best thing that I ever did is absolutely nothing for the first year. I didn't do anything, meaning I didn't change anything. Clearly they had the market. They had figured it out. I mean, they built, when I bought it, it was 16 million and some change in premium.
Right.
So they had done something right, but they were kind of stuck back in the 90s, right? Everything was paper files. And so one thing that I learned at State Farm is just observing, just how to observe and how to listen. And so literally that's what I did all for an entire year, is just observe their processes, their systems, and get to know the team inside and out, to become part of their lives and them to become part of my life and my family's life. And so really what that was trying to build trust, right?
Yeah.
Leadership for me is a bridge of trust. And so to be able to get people where I wanted to go and where I knew that this agency could be in a relatively short period of time, I needed a ton of equity in the bank, and because I knew I was going to be pulling that out. So there was that piece, the people piece, but then the process piece. So at State Farm, I learned processes. I learned how to implement processes, and I learned how to hold people accountable and hire the right person, trust them to do their job, but then hold them accountable, right? The checker gets what the checker checks.
Right.
And so I think those are the two things that I really learned at State Farm that really helped me to be in a position to one, purchase the agency, but then two, to be able to scale it like we have is the people side of it, and building trust and building relationships with my team. But then also such a huge emphasis on building processes, implementing things, and then teaching the process, the system, and then holding them accountable. So I'm big. My leadership team will tell you that Ryan never implements a process, and then unless there's a process to follow up on the process.
Right.
And
Love
so
that.
Those I think were the two biggest keys that made this all possible.
Where does this scaling come from? You know, because like obviously a lot of what you're talking, and this is a question me and Tony are both, because me and Tony are both trying to scale our in-house teams like that. We have the aggregator side of things, which I think you know about, but we're really trying to scale this in-house side of things. Yeah. What's the number one thing to scaling? Is it the people? Is it the processes? Like what is it? Or is it, hey, put it all into a pot and you need to mix it perfectly and that's the secret sauce? Because you've scaled in pretty much every position, right? And I think that's, part of your bio is like, hey, I love the building and the scaling side of business.
Yeah.
Where does that come from, and what are the keys to that?
So I think, this sounds cheesy, but it's 100% true. The foundation has to be there. So I think when I talk to a lot of agents about scaling, they want to talk about more leads and marketing and all those things. And you got to have that, right? But if you're piling a bunch of crap on top of something that doesn't exist, you're not going to get anywhere. So for me, it's about processes and systems. And I had to build something that I could just keep piling stuff on top, more leads, more marketing, and it would continue to flourish.
Yeah.
So I spent 1.5 to 2 years just building processes and systems. So for example, let me give you an example of what that is, because otherwise it's just fluff. So on the acquisition side, so when I bought the agency, they had like 5 producers, personal line producers. So somebody would call in, a producer would answer the phone. They would, they had an intake person. The intake person would take all the client's information, the info on the house or the cars. Then they would send it to the producer. The producer would then go into Easy Links, take 1.5 hours to quote it, call them. Then they would chase them with the application. So the producer was doing everything. And I was like, I'm paying these producers a lot of money. I want these producers to actually produce. So what if I could build a system where they didn't do any quoting? The producers, they didn't do any quoting. Yep. They didn't send out apps. They didn't chase apps. They didn't bind anything. They didn't take payments. They didn't do any service work. All they did was freaking sell. And so I knew if I could build that, then I could pile on as many leads, because I knew every producer, we weren't bound to doing 6 quotes a day per producer, right? I could do 50 quotes per day per producer, as long as I could keep. So what I did is I built a process in the back where a producer now takes the inbound phone call, right, to establish a relationship. And then I have an entire team of VAs in the background who all they do is use we use agency Zoom. So the producer moves the tile, boom, a VA picks it up. They quote everything. They send the top two back to the producer. Producer picks up the phone, calls the prospect, delivers the quote, moves the tile, and another VA is sending out the apps. Another VA is issuing the policy, and boom. So literally, we made a sale, and the agency made, let's say, $200, $250, and it took my producer that I'm paying $50,000 a year, it took them about 7 minutes of their time. That's how you scale.
Right.
So
right.
And that's people in the right place, but then also they've got to be able to do it quickly and accurately. And so if I want to scale, what do I got to do? Hire another VA to quote. That's all I got to do. So once we get to that capacity piece, all I'm doing is hire another $10 an hour VA, and I'm off to the races.
So if I'm in that agency,
for your virtual assistants.
Say that again.
Real quick, who are you using for your VAs?
I use Lava Automation. So
Lava? Okay, cool. Yep.
So my VAs do, we call them VEs, virtual employees, but they're literally part of our team. They're on every Zoom call. They're like family to us. So I think we just hired our 14th VA. So they do everything from my video editing, from my personal stuff and the agency stuff, all the way to service stuff, back office service stuff, to quoting, both in personal and commercial. So
that's with Moorhead too, right? Isn't that with Moorhead? Isn't that Lava? Yep. Shout out to Austin. Yep. What were you saying, Tony? Sorry.
So if I'm in my agency and I know, hey, I feel like we got a good foundation, right? We got a lot of renewals coming in. We've got business. We've got loyal clients. We got Google reviews. Like, things are kind of happening. And we're at that stage where we're starting to maybe put on new producers. And if we know that ultimately we have to get down in the processes and we need to create more efficiencies in our process, or just create processes, period, that are better, what are the details that we look at? Like, where do we start first in examining our processes or starting to build a process? Like, how do we start to think about that workflow that we need to create?
So I tend to go, Tony, where my mind goes is I go straight to the customer experience, from hello to goodbye. What is it that the customer experiences, and how do you make the process for them as professional, as easy, and as quick as possible?
That's good.
I don't want people waiting around, 36, 48 hours for quotes and all of those things. So I tend to start from the customer's perspective. So what's it sound like when they answer the phone? What, if you're using automation, what kind of communication is the client getting? Are you instilling confidence? Are you building value throughout the entire process, both through automation and through exactly what your team's saying? So for example, when they call our office now, they talk to a customer assistant or a customer service rep. And the reason we do that is because about 85% of the calls that come through are clients already, existing clients. And so we want to put that out front. So they're transferred then to a sales rep. And if they're calling in for a quote, for example, then the sales rep owns the relationship. And from then on, they're saying specific things to build value. So value, advice, price, and discounts. That's our sales process. Value, advice, price, and discounts.
I like that.
And so they have specific things they're saying throughout that conversation. Then when they hang up, there's specific things that are happening in the background that the client is having interaction, some automation to reinstill the value, advice, price, and discounts they just had a conversation about. Then when we pick up the phone to call them back to deliver the quote, there's specific things. So for me, it's all about the experience the customer gets. Because that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do is enhance their life and help them live life securely.
Right. Steve Jobs' philosophy was the same thing. And I remember reading an article of some sort. I don't remember exactly where it was at this point because it's been many years. But he brought that philosophy to Apple, where we have to build products from the end user in mind first, and then build the product to meet what they need, not try to build a product and then shove it on the end user. Like, here, use this because it's going to make your life better. Like, what are the things that our customers at Apple need? And then how do we build a product that's going to service those needs, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. It's good. It's good.
Did you pick that up from him, or is that something you just kind of learned on your own?
No, I've never read anything of Steve Jobs.
Okay.
I probably should have, but I never have. I picked it up along the way from somewhere else because I'm not smart enough to invent anything. True story.
What'd you pay for that camera, Ryan? Look, Ryan's pissed, guys. He's like, man, this thing, dude.
I can't figure out it. It just said like overheating or something, and it kicked off.
I've had that. Do you have a Sony? What is it?
Yeah, Sony.
Yep. I've had that happen with mine too. Well, real quick, and that's if you're good because it's cool. As long as ultimately, if anybody knows this, which we're going to talk a little bit about podcasting at the end, the audio is technically the most important part. But I want to stay here because this is something because we're moving CRMs right now. We're going to Sales Pipe, and so it's the most robust, crazy, powerful freaking CRM I've ever seen, right? And just the automations and the integrations and everything you can do with it, right? In your stance, right? And so we have a mix of obviously people in-house, but then we also leverage virtual assistants. We use Rob Lopez with Viva. And so utilizing them more, again, probably more on the customer service side. We also utilize a telemarketer. So instead of my people outbound dialing, right, trying to get these people on the phone, I just want them calling on people that have already said yes. So just small things like that to outsource, but getting really into the automations, right? So we're talking about the customer experience. Where do you draw the line of too much automation, or what are we doing in our automation to where it doesn't? Because like for me, I can always tell when I'm in something automated, right? We all can. And maybe that's just because we're automating people as well. Maybe your everyday person doesn't know that or pick up on it. What's that fine line? Because I'm like, man, okay, I could totally automate this. But then part of me is like, wow, but I want a little bit of a human. I want a producer to be instilling that value. What does that look like in your process? Like where do you think is kind of that fine line, or is there one that kind of you just always tweak it? What does that look like?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Joe, because I think everybody knows when they're in some kind of automation funnel, and that doesn't feel good, right? It feels impersonal. And so you can't, in insurance, right, we're dealing on 8 to 12, maybe 15% margins. So we can't, if we're writing as much business as we're writing, I can't have 50 employees that I'm paying $50,000 a year, right? I'd go under. So you've got to employ automation to some extent. So one thing that we just started doing, because I've had that same feeling, and the reason I had it is I got an email from a client. For some reason, he emailed me back directly and said, hey, I know I got a piece of automated email and it said XYZ. And I was like, how did he know it's automated? Okay, we got to change some things. If a client knows they're in automation, we got to change it. So we can't change the fact that we use automation because that's one thing that allows us to play at the level that we play at. And so we have to do that. So what we did is I just hired a videographer to come in and shot a bunch of content that we're now embedding inside some of those emails and text messages to try to, even though it is automation, it gives a little bit more human element and a little bit more of a human touch. So for example, like on our remarketing process. So now we've got a video about remarketing and how that adds value to them and why they need to continue doing business with an independent agent. So it allows them to see us, hear us. Same thing on a welcome. So we have an email that goes out. We just embedded a welcome email that's me talking about the value of Grimes Insurance, what we do for the community, why we appreciate you, and then the camera kind of goes around the office and everybody in the office says hi and welcome, thanks for choosing Grimes. So that's a great question, Joe. I don't know the answer to that, but I think
I think with that though, well, a lot of people will fall off because they don't realize that you could just take literally one day to have a videographer come in, and then now you've got a whole bank of content that you can just repurpose, right, and just slap it onto an email, right? And I think I'm not going to name them because I was doing some social media training with some guys yesterday, and one of the guys was like, "Man, I just have never been on." It was the consistent piece that he was struggling with, right? And I said, "Hey, watch this, dude." I said, "Hey, whip out your phone, take a picture of this, and then post it on your timeline." And it literally, I mean, that right there, it was content, right? And it's, I think a lot of that people don't realize that it is actually fairly easy to pick up content, especially if we're not procrastinating at all. It's like, hey, look, everybody, we're just going to get in. It's going to be a little uncomfortable if you don't want to be on camera, but once it's done, and we can use it, for literally however long you want to use it.
can I give you 2 things that have helped me with content? Because I'm not a camera guy.
Absolutely.
I don't like to be in front of the camera, but I know I have.
Obviously, we see how you work that one.
But if you're going to be on camera, have a good one.
Right.
Nobody wants to look at a grainy video. So 2 things. Number 1, I'm a planner. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. So every Friday we have content day. And so I have a handful of producers that want to be actively involved in that. So Friday from 9 to 11 is content day. So we have a different location we shoot at every time. So I invested some money in a nice camera, tripod, some Bluetooth mic kind of deals you can put on your shirt, and we just shoot content for 2 hours. So we'll bust out about 25 videos in that 2-hour period, and then upload them. And I have a guy that does video editing. So calendar it, right? And so how we come up with our ideas is we do like everybody else does, man. We steal it. So how much content are we absorbing every single day? I'll hear like Gary V talk about something. I don't know. It could be about leadership. And I'm like, oh, that's a great point. Now, I'm not going to go out and steal Gary V's words, right? I'm going to take his exact topic and put it in my own words and do a 1.5-minute long clip, and boom, we're done.
Yep.
Easy? So I literally have the Notes app in my phone. I'm an iPhone guy. So the Notes app, every time I hear something, it could be family related or something I see on social media, then I'm just going to make a note about it. And so every Friday I look at my notes. I'm like, boom, I got 10 things. Let's go.
Yep. I've got a folder like that.
Where do you get your best traction on your content? Is there a specific platform? Do you get a ton of traction on YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Are you TikToking? Are you out there everywhere? But where do you get the most response or traction on the content you're putting out?
On Instagram is where we get the most traction. So I'm not an expert at this. I'm still learning. But right now we're just in the phase of throwing content out. We're trying to make it as not perfect, but we're trying to make it decent quality. And we're just throwing it out there. So we're in the stage right now where we're just information gathering. We're throwing a bunch of stuff out and just seeing what takes off, and kind of going from there. And I think that was the mental hurdle I had to get over. Is it has to be perfect, and the message has to be perfect. And the editing, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And I think there's a lot to be said to that. I think because people do business with people, right?
Yep.
Like theoretically. So I think that's a big part of when you're shooting content. If they feel that it's super authentic and maybe you flub a word or you say something or something, there's a little detail where they can tell, like, wow, this isn't Hollywood. This is just some dude in his office doing his thing. He's a real business owner. He's a real human. I think that they relate with that a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, why would I do business with that guy? He seems like a very authentic, genuine human being, not somebody that's out there just trying to get polished behind a camera so much.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, there's all these, I see some of these guys that like, oh my gosh, they spent thousands of dollars doing this. And there's several different takes and different scenes. Man, just get in front of a camera, talk about what you're passionate about and what you love. Yep. And that passion will shine through and people will chime in.
Right. And I think with video, because even when you look at when me and Tony first started, we started this call on just doing a Facebook Live together, because Facebook just rolled out this feature where you could go live with others, and the connection was horrible, the video was crap, right? Yeah. And I agree.
My internet sucks.
You shouldn't. Oh yeah, internet. Tony's just dropping off the call every other second. But it's once you start it, going back to even your accountability piece. That's why me and Tony started this whole show. Was that, hey, you know what? We know that we want to do something. We want to give back. All right, let's just hold each other accountable. And Wednesdays at 9 a.m. And then what do you know? 2 years later, or I don't even know how many. Well, I guess it's not 2 years yet, but we've never missed a single Wednesday. But when you look at it, like even from when we were interviewing David Carruthers back towards the beginning, he's like, dude, you look like you're in a 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. And I was like, you're not wrong. But then how it's evolved, right, and how it's morphed. And it's like, now you have like a mic. But I think a lot of this stuff has all trickled in over a longer period of time because we've gotten more comfortable with it. Because we've done the reps and things like that.
Yep.
And so let's just kind of, I wanted to talk a little bit about acquisition, but let's stay here right now. So the power of podcasting. You and Daniel obviously have started. How long or how old is Insurance Leaders? I want to say it's a little bit newer, or maybe not.
Yeah, it is newer. I think Daniel and I flew to Mobile, Alabama. our editor is down in Mobile.
Okay.
And so we flew down there. I want to say it was in November. So we laid down our first 2 episodes in November, but I don't think we actually dropped until late December. I think we dropped a couple of episodes late in December. So I think we've got about 25 recorded, and I think we've dropped 15, 18, maybe something like that. So they drop every Thursday at 6 a.m. And I think today will probably be, or tomorrow will be number 19, maybe 20, something like that.
Love it. What
Nice.
was the reason behind that? Why'd you guys do that? Obviously, you guys are leaders. I look at you guys as leaders within this industry. Is that kind of the premise behind it, or it's like, hey, we want to just give back to the agents? What all is that?
Yeah, so great question. It actually, so funny story, we mentioned Austin Moorhead and Lava Automation. Daniel uses Austin, and I use him too. And I reached out to Austin, and I said, hey, man, I'm struggling. I'm trying to implement agency fees on the commercial side. Who do you know that I could call? And he's like, Daniel's the man. That's all he does is beef. He calls it beef, broker fees. He adds beef on everything. As a matter of fact, that's how he compensates his team. They don't make commissions. They only earn money off the
all through the fees. Smart.
So I picked up the phone. I called Daniel, and I just said, hey, help me with this. And so long story short, Daniel and I struck up a relationship. And then in the course of a conversation we had several months later, we were talking about content and all this stuff. And I said, you know what I'd love to do? I said, I'd love to do a podcast or something on leadership. So I said, look at all of this content that's available for business owners and insurance agency owners specifically. There's so much content out there, IAOA and all that stuff.
Yep.
But there's nothing about leadership. And Daniel was like, I'm in. Let's do it. I don't know what you're thinking, but let's do it. So that's how it came about, is just the belief that leadership is literally the most important aspect of running an agency, and subject matter wise, there's probably the least amount of that out there.
Man, I'm really glad you brought that up, because earlier you said lead your team, don't manage them.
Mm-hmm.
Expand on that a little bit if you don't mind.
Well, I think for me, it goes back to Tony. It goes back to my sales philosophy, which is I uncover opportunities through asking questions, right? So that's how I lead, is by asking questions and figuring out where people are at, where they want to go. And then I know what my skill set is. I know how I can help you get there, but I need to know if you're willing to go there. Do you really want that? Or you just say you want that because you think that's what I want to hear? So it's for me, leadership is a lot about just example, showing up, being the first one to do it, early adoption type mentality and philosophy, and then asking a lot of questions and just being there as a servant leader to help and encourage, setting the vision, and then asking who wants to play at a really high level and allowing them the opportunity to play at a high level and helping them. So like, I don't go to my team and say, hey, here's our goals. Now, I know what my goals are for the agency, right? But I'm not going to go to them and say, hey, Joe, I need you to do X number of new quotes a day, or what? Hey, Joe, what is it you want to accomplish this year? And Joe's like, oh, I want to make this much money, or I want to do this. I want to take my family to Disney World. All right, well, what's that going to take? How can I help you get there? And then helping Joe really solidify and put on paper his goal of taking his family to Disneyland, and putting that on paper and what that's going to take on a daily basis to get his family to Disneyland in August.
Yep.
For me, that's leading your team.
And when you're asking questions, right? This is a shout out to everybody, because we've heard that, right? But I think where Ryan is winning is because then he listens to how they answer. A lot of people ask the questions and they just don't even shut up. It's like, well, no, and it's like, wait, what? I mean, the key to it is actually listening to your team so that you can lead them correctly. We did our House of Dreams. Tony did his 6 pillars, characteristics and everything this past week. And just really a lot of that is like understanding your team, understanding what they're passionate about, right? Insurance doesn't have to be their passion, but if it can be the vehicle to get them there, right? But you have to know what it is to even know, right? You have to ask those questions to really figure that out. That's leadership to me. So how can people follow the podcast? Where you guys launched at? You guys on YouTube, Spotify, all those channels, I'm assuming. Where can they tune in at?
Yeah, anywhere you listen to podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's the Insurance Leaders Podcast. So it's Daniel Song and I, TikTok's famous Daniel Song. So the Insurance Leaders Podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I wanted to take the last 5 minutes here.
Yeah.
Because it's still a hot topic. Even though acquisition is kind of starting, carriers are not as big of fans of acquisition right now as they were literally like a year ago. But even it's still a hot topic. People are out there, they're trying to buy books, right? There's still a lot more sellers out there than you probably just haven't talked to them. What is some key things that you can give our listeners? Because we do have there's a group called the Acquisition Syndicate as well. So I can post this over there too, or just the clip. What is something you can give? Hey man, when I went in and bought a freaking 16, which that's an awesome purchase. I love that. This is what I look for, right? And these are things that were extremely crucial in order for me to even make this happen, or for me to want to make that happen, right? Because you're coming from the business mindset. Okay, I know my numbers. I can geek out on a spreadsheet, right? But here's the things I needed to see from Grimes in order for that to make sense for me to go acquire that.
Yeah. So keeping outside of insurance, my background's real estate. So I buy long-term holding investment real estate, so houses, apartment complexes, those things. So I live and breathe cash flow. So the way I look at it as buying an insurance agency, when I tell people how much I paid for the agency and how much I finance, they think I'm absolutely nuts. And I'm like, it's just a giant apartment complex. That's all it is, right? That's all it is. So it's all about cash flow. So the numbers had to be there. It had to make sense financially, because that's what you're buying, is a stream of revenue, right? Long-term stream of revenue. So the numbers have to be there. The business has to be appropriately managed, those things. But honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing, Joe. I mean, I was coming from the State Farm world.
We're not going to post it in Acquisition Syndicate. You're good. I'm kidding.
I didn't know what I was doing. I knew numbers. I know balance sheets and all those things, P&Ls. I understood the numbers behind all those things. And so when I came in, that's really what I was looking for, is what were the numbers? What did the numbers tell me? And then again, that's my style, right? Is just to shut up and listen. And so I asked a lot of questions of the owners. I tried to figure out their motivation, because clearly this is a massive agency when I bought it. Why haven't? So they kept talking about other offers they had gotten. Well, and so my question was, why haven't you taken them? Because they were massive numbers. They told me. Yeah. Well, that was the best question I ever asked. Why didn't you take them? And their answer is what led me to buy the agency. And their answer was, we're afraid our team's going to lose their job. The Grimes name is my dad's name. That's the owner. That's what she said. It's my dad's name. This is a pillar in the community. We don't want to lose that. And they knew some of the conglomerates that were coming to buy them, they were basically going to sell everything here, move it to Dallas, maybe keep one or two people here. So at the time, there was about 15 employees, 15, 14, 12 employees were going to lose their jobs. And so that became my sales pitch, is here's who I am. I'm a local guy. I'm going to be here. At the time I was 38 years old, 39. I'm 38 years old. I got a long time left. And so here's what I'm going to do. And I made Mariana Grimes was the former owner. I made her a promise. I said, if you sell me the agency, we'll work out all the numbers. We'll figure all that stuff out where it makes sense, and it makes sense for you and me. But here's what I promise you. You'll come back in 10 years from now, and you'll still be proud of what the Grimes name means in Lubbock, Texas. And you'll be surprised how much we've grown and even enhanced and built upon the leadership position that you started here.
Why the commercial growth? Why are you pushing in the? I mean, I'm assuming I know why, because we started all personal lines, and then maybe that's from our Allstate days, because it's you sell auto and home insurance. That's how you make money, right? Yep. Where now it's we're 50-50. We do millions in the trucking space and that side of things. Why now are you growing on the commercial side?
Well, that was part of the reason that it was so attractive to me, is because I come from the State Farm world, which is the cross-sell world, the bundle world, right? Where State Farm doesn't sell an auto unless it has a home or a life policy associated with it. So I looked at that as just an opportunity, another income stream, right? So we've got, at the time there were 16 million. So I think it was like 8,000 or 9,000 households, something like that. 9,000 households. How many of those households have a commercial need? Right. If we just tap into our existing book, we're going to be able to grow a commercial book. So that's where it really came. And they had no life insurance on the books. So that was another income stream. And so for me, it was about protecting our P&C book. But if we're going to continue to scale this thing, we've got to scale it from different avenues. So from the personal line side, which we've agency wise, we've doubled it in 4 years. So we're at 30 million in premium now.
Jeez.
Just because
come on, Ryan,
getting all those extra opportunities.
I think with that too, it's smart to go in and cross-sell y'all, especially in an acquirer's standpoint, right? Because Ryan Reynolds obviously is not Grimes, right? And he's never talked with these clients. He's never, those types of things. So when you're going into the acquisition side of things, I think that's actually a great way for these people to really get to know who you are.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people where they'll go buy a book, but then it's like, well, we don't know you, and we were with Marianne, right? So it's like we're leaving, right? If it's not her, we're out. But I think that's a very smart play. It's like, hey, let's go in, and that instantly. I mean, you guys know the more policies within a household, right? What does that mean? More retention, right? They're going to stay. Yeah. They're going to stay on the books. So I think that's really smart. But wow,
and I think
30
Joe,
mil, bro.
This is a really important point, because Mariana Grimes took less money from me than she could have got from someone else, from a Gallagher or whoever it was, the other big conglomerates. But the reason why was because of her motivation, right?
Yep.
And so I think, number one, kudos to Mariana for doing what she thought was the best thing for her and for her team, and it cost her money, right? But number two, that's how much it meant to her. So had I have never asked the right questions and been willing to listen to what their motivation was and why they hadn't unloaded it already, then I wouldn't be standing here today.
It's good, man.
Makes sense, man. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today. We're closing in on an hour, so we want to make sure that we're respectful not only of your time, but our viewers' time. We've all got work to do today, but I hope you guys have definitely enjoyed this episode with Mr. Reynolds. We should probably have him back, I think, to talk about more about processes and automation.
We should do a joint. We should get the insurance leaders, the podcast duo on here. That would be a fun episode. Get Daniel on here.
That is definitely a great idea. We could do a trade. We could have y'all on here, and then maybe we could jump on y'all's show. Who knows?
Yeah.
I like that idea.
There you go.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Joe, any last words?
Just Ryan, how can anybody reach out if they want to reach out? Again, give a quick shout out to the insurance leaders, and then any way that they could touch base with you.
Yeah, Insurance Leaders Podcast. We're on. If you're friends with Daniel and I on social media, you're going to see our hype videos every week that we do. But we're on Instagram, Insurance Leaders Podcast. I'm personally on Instagram at Ryan Reynolds 79. Looks up on Google. Grimes Insurance, Lubbock, Texas. You'll find us.
Love it, man. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it. Definitely doing another one. That would be a lot of fun. And syndicate members, it's the peak of the week, right? It's Wednesday. Even though I'm going to Vegas, you got to keep going, right? I'm slowing down for a couple of days. Well, maybe I don't know. I don't think I'm actually going to slow down.
You're speeding up for a couple of days, probably.
Yeah, classic. But hey, let's be intentional, right? Let's lead our people by listening and asking the right questions, right? And ultimately, just freaking do the right thing, right? So really appreciate your time, Ryan. Go have a great Wednesday and a great rest of the week, syndicate members. We love y'all. We'll check y'all later.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Joe.